Tapping in.
Are we live?
The main reason that we come in over here is to talk to these people about some things that they want us to talk about. And one of those things that got us heated and up in and had our hands up in arms is the fact that Tesla is handing out so much money to people. Tesla had to pay $137 million, brother, to a former employee because they were complaining for racial accusations. I don't know about you, but immediately after I saw this, bro, I ran every racial encounter that I've ever had for anywhere that I worked at to see if I could run the same finesse.
The same, yeah. Yeah, man, it's quite a finesse, right? $137 million. I think it's natural as any black person who is probably, if you're black, you've probably experienced some type of racial something on the job. And if you're black, you probably didn't get 137 million, right? So to hear that somebody else got that, I feel like it's natural to be like, reparations might be on the table now, right? That's nuts. That's nuts, man. So what do we know happened to this man to warrant $137 million in payments for racism on the job?
Look, they were calling him all sorts of niggas and whatnot, and so they were calling him all sorts of niggas and what. But like, there's a serious undertone to this, which is that there is an element of racism that happens in workspaces, and that is highly uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like, that really is highly uncomfortable, especially if you. First of all, just being a black man in corporate by virtue probably means, despite where you are outside of South Africa, or or in these other India and places like that, where white folks aren't necessarily the majority. But even in South Africa over here, if you're going in the corporate world, you are going to be dealing with white folks. The statistic in South Africa is that the white people count up 8 to 13% of the population, but make up 80% of the executive roles in corporate. Right.
That definitely creates an alienating environment for black folks, no doubt.
Definitely. And I had a cousin right now who recently started a job, and he was saying the same thing too, which is that, man, these white folks is wilding. These white folks is wilding, but that's something you need to deal with. What I'm imploring him to do is to take all those notes so we can run this 137 million. Bro, I don't know what they call this man, but I need to know the combination of all the words that he said, how he recorded it, so that we can distribute this information out to our fans so they too can get 137 million.
All right. So let's put it. So first of all, his name is Owen Diaz, right? And Mr. Diaz actually didn't work directly for Tesla. He was a contract employee of Tesla's. And so my man joined the job in 2015. He was working there for about 9 months. Over the course of that 9 months, he experienced a lot of like racism. People were writing racist things on bathroom stalls. People would use racial epithets like around the office and all sorts of different ways. So he ended up leaving after that 9 months. During that 9 months, he also had his son come and work. He also had his son come and work for Tesla. There's a little bit more on that later, but so he leaves after 9 months. He sues because of all this racism that he experienced, and he is later awarded $137 million, right? So I think that's dope. When I hear that, I think that's good. If the man experienced racism, he should get some money. $137 million is a lot. It's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot of money. It makes me think about all the other black people that are working in Tesla right now, bro. It is a hostile environment in Tesla right now. I'm sure all the black folks there are just no pads out.
So on that, right? So actually before this, in 2017, there was a class action lawsuit. And I remember when you first told me about this story, that was my first question was like, come on, bro. If I'm another black guy that works at Tesla, I'm super heated if he went and was telling about all this racism and he didn't include that it was happening to everybody else. But there actually has been an ongoing class action lawsuit against Tesla for a hostile environment and racism since 2017, right? So, but this guy decided to take his own route, and that seems to have worked very, very well for him. So I hear 137 million and I go, dang, that's a lot of money. And I'm almost like, that's because as we said, if you black, you've experienced this racism. And I don't, all right, put it like this, right? If somebody was like, if somebody was like, Miles, we're asking if anybody, and if you've ever experienced racism, you might be, one of those commercials came on TV. If you've experienced racism in your work environment, you might be entitled to some money. Call a lawyer at Blackity Black Blackson 333-3333. I would call them and they were like, you entitled to some money. How much do you think you want? And I would have been like, I want $100 million, but I settle out of court right now for $500K, right? That's probably what I would do. That would probably be my reaction, right? I want $100 million, or I'll settle out of court right now for $500K. This guy got more than I would even ask for, right? And so at first I'm thinking, dang, man, that's a lot of money. So I look a little bit more into it, and I stumble upon the email that the VP of people at Tesla wrote in response to this, right? Now, what do you think she said?
Nigga, never.
No. So actually, when he was putting in complaints in real time, Tesla actually did fire a couple of people based on his complaints, which to me says they definitely did it, and there was evidence that there was that racism if those people got fired, right?
I'll tell it to you like this, right? Is that one of our mutual friends had, and this is back in 2015, 2014, 2015, right when Tesla was hitting its stride, going, astronomical with its share value. There was a lot of talk around the work environment in Tesla. That was common talk around how difficult of a work environment it is, which is quite typical when you work with a single figure leader head, right? And part of what you ended up seeing with Tesla is Musk stepping away from the helm, and then incorporating a bunch of other executives to be able to run it. There was in that same period between 2015 and 2018, there was a lot of executive turnover in Tesla. The CFO, who used to be an Indian lady, well-renowned from Google, left in a blaze of glory, if you will, and for an undisclosed amount. And that kept on happening again and again, that high executive turnover, which speaks possibly to this culture that's there. So that was something that was known. I do not know what the head of people had said, but whatever they said, it did not help what this amount it probably helped this amount get to where it is.
No. So she's responding to the amount after the fact. So what do you think she said after the 137 million is awarded to Mr. Diaz? What do you think her response to that was in the internal email?
Look, this is a lot of bullshit, but all right, we're gonna pay this. Y'all better none of y'all better ask for this much, because you ain't gonna get it.
Big facts. Her, and part of that, and just reading that email was part of what made me go like, dang, man, I don't even feel bad that they had to shell out this much money, because her email was basically a list of bullet points as to why she doesn't believe that this was an amount of money that he should have received, right? She goes, Mr. Diaz never worked for Tesla. He was a contract employee who worked for city staff. Mr. Diaz said he witnessed people saying the N-word, but other people that testified on his behalf also stated that they heard Black people using the N-word around the office as well, right? They said that we responded to his complaints and that people were fired. They said that even though he complained about racial harassment and the time he was being harassed, he recommended that his son and daughter and his son, who later actually did work for Tesla, work at Tesla, right? And these are her list to basically say, I don't feel that these facts justify the verdict reached by the jury. We do recognize that in 2015 and 2016, we were not perfect. We're still not perfect, but we've come a long way. Now, how does that strike you, bro?
Listen, there's not enough eggshells that white people need to walk around in corporate. So this 137M pushes the number of eggshells that people need to step around in. There's something that happens when you get into corporate around a lot of people, and you so happen to be the minority in that field, that people feel very comfortable using the token minority person as a venting tool for either they want explanations. Hey, tell me about black people, why do y'all do this? Can I touch your hair? That type of thing, right? There's that amount. And then on the other side, it's like, okay, you're a good black, but them other niggas like that, there's a whole lot of that in corporate, and it puts you in an awkward position as a person of color, where you as you almost have to you almost have to assimilate and blend in a bit, and you not necessarily tolerate it, right? But how often do you run to HR for minor racial epithets that are said within the office? You get exhausted with that relay race. And so what I see with this 137 million is every lap and every HR meeting that black people have had that went ignored. These are reparations. I just asked the brother to spread it around. Come on, man.
Yeah, nah, I appreciate that. Because they're it's inquantifiable, if that's a word, right? Like how much that weighs on you every day going into that workplace. And so for Valerie Capers, who's the VP of People, to say things like, well, we addressed his concerns and we fired the people that did it, and he recommended that his son work here. Like, it just speaks to being out of touch with the experience that, like, yo, people have to work, man. Like, people have to make money to earn a living, bro. A lot of people are working. Matter of fact, let me quote what Owen Diaz said. He said, a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. They have to either choose to take the abuse that these billion-dollar companies are coming out with, or choose to feed their family, right? And it's like, that's so real, bro. And her statement is, that's what's lacking in there. It's this understanding that, yeah, he might have recommended his son work there, even though he'd had to deal with some racism before, because they need money. And Tesla's a huge company that can probably afford to pay a lot more of other people. And there are people all over the country, black and white, right, that go to work every day, not because they want to, not because it's not a hostile environment, but because they need the money. And it's another case of just like, yo, somebody who's in this kind of higher position, whose decisions affect a lot of everyday people, blue collar people, and they're just being out of touch. The lady is black, man. I don't think that's an accident. I don't think that they had the black VP come out and make this statement on accident, but it sucks, man. Speaking of awkward positions in corporate, she's in an awkward position. And I feel for this lady who had to write this email to disparage this black man getting his money.
Now, when you speak about the gentleman who experienced racism and then recommending recommending his son to go work in that area, you're very right on the point that, excuse me, you're very right on the point that people need to eat and people need to work. A recent something that I recently stumbled upon, right, was a study where they were busy measuring how women engage with sexual harassment in the office, right? Now, before the study, they would ask the women what their responses would be. And then in a blind study where the women did not know what they were going with, that they were going into a simulated interview, right? So part of the studies that they asked women that were not in that environment, what would you do if somebody asked you about your your cup size? What would you do if somebody asked about your cup size? What would you if somebody asked you about your something sexual innuendos? They almost 100% of the women before the study were saying that they would quit, they would leave in a rage, they would hit the table and swear at him. That was the response. But then when they actually did the study to find out, less than 10% of the women actually spoke up against that when they were asked things such as, what is your cup size? What is your relationship status? Commenting on their appearances and asking inappropriate types of questions. All to say that someone's reaction when they're within a situation varies differently than us as laymen who are standing outside of it, looking at it. Be like, if Tesla called me a nigga, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not how you're actually going to react. And if you're a black person in corporate, especially in the US, if you are going to avoid every place where there's been a racial instance, then you might not ever work in corporate unless you're working for a black company. And even then, you're probably going to be exposed to that, right? So one of the conversations that my parents had with me before going into corporate, and that your grandparents had with us, is that, hey man, you're going to experience it. You're going to experience it. And keeping a cool head is the coolest heads prevail in this situation. Take your notes, record what you need to record. You're going to get it, but you'll prevail.
Word. And I'm glad you took it there, right? To the familial teachings aspect of it. Because I certainly I can remember both experiencing and hearing and reading about so many instances of that kind of conformist culture being pushed on young Black people, right? When you go into corporate, you need to talk a certain way, you need to walk a certain way, you need to have your hair a certain way, right? You need to dress a little bit even better than your peers and colleagues at your level because you're going to be viewed a certain way. And there's always a lot of pushback against that. That yeah, young Black people, young Black professionals shouldn't have to change who they are or not, or cut their hair or keep their hair at a certain length because white people in corporate might not accept that. And there's this back and forth because there's this push that for an etiquette school isn't the right word, but these things to correct the way that Black youth act. There's kind of this overcorrection, I think, from older generations, and it's important to understand it in that context of Black folks who are grown and working and have worked and have had all these experiences have been traumatized by working in corporate by a million microaggressions over years and are looking at people who are trying to enter the workforce and saying to give them an easier time, yo, you gotta just cut your hair, man, or just make sure you wear a tie even if nobody else is wearing a tie, right? Make sure you finish all your words. You say your E's and your R's. Make sure you finish every word like this. You know what I'm saying?
Yo, listen, and here comes the transparency. Here comes us being transparent on our platform, right? Now, I am a tattoo having, chain wearing nigga before, you know what I mean? I come with the full package of accoutrements.
Word, you do, yeah. The stylish glasses, pink shirt. I'm with you. Yep. It's all there.
No, but listen, recently I had a conversation with my mother, right? And the conversation with my mother is that she's very unhappy about about my tattoos. And the conversation was about how are people going to perceive you? She's very disturbed about it, limiting my opportunities and whatnot. And to one extent, we would be irresponsible if we advocated for people of color to enter corporate spaces with their full-blown negative and blast. I would not recommend that. Definitely understand your environment. Definitely understand your environment and adjust to that environment. But that being said, the only way in order to be able to change that type of culture is to create that culture for yourself. So we know that in our workspace and in the companies that we have, we don't mandate dress code. We don't mandate no tattoos or whatever the case is. We don't do that. But if there is a situation where we are doing something financial and we need to put a suit on, we're going on TV, we do whatever, we'll dress up for that occasion and we'll present ourselves in a manner that's fitting to the crowd and the audience of what we're going to be talking about. But again, go to the Rock Nation offices, bro, or go to Facebook. They wear flip-flops over there.
Word. Wow. Yeah, you said a lot because there's a lot of conversations there, especially about how white people get to wear flip-flops, right? And, khaki pants, and they get to do that in a different way. Or not khaki pants, capri pants. But yeah, man, I think it's important to acknowledge, I think, what did you say, bro? Know your audience. That's great advice in every context, right? Know your audience. Make sure that you're delivering whatever message you're trying to deliver in a way that the person on the other end can receive it, right? And so, yeah, it is important to be on your P's and Q's when you enter a corporate space, no matter who you are, especially if you're Black. That's just the reality. But when we have that conversation, when we tell young people that, we need to make sure what we're emphasizing is that the problem isn't with them. The problem isn't with the young people. The problem isn't with their culture. The problem isn't with their dreads. The problem isn't with even them sagging their pants. The problem is that we've created a society that cares more about where you wear your pants than where your head is at, right? Would rather have you look busy in a shirt and tie than do work in some jeans, right? And that's what we need to make sure that they know. That's the truth. But here's the reality we live in. And so the home space can acknowledge a very different set of values than that other space, right? And can be a space of healing from having to go out and deal with that other space. That's what I would encourage.